Hi, I'm Abrar Darwish and welcome to Let's Talk Fluency. This is a short introductory workshop for you to learn everything you need about stuttering and how you can help your child at home. Before we get started, let me talk a little bit about myself. So, I'm a speech and language therapist and I'm also a mother of four. I graduated with a BS in linguistics and language pathology, and that's just a very long phrase that means speech and language therapy. I graduated from the University of Reading and have worked in various settings, both in Reading, Aberdeen in Scotland, as well as Bahrain. I am passionate about early intervention and helping parents make a difference in their children's lives. So there's a picture of me and my four little ones. Now let's get started. So I'm guessing if you're here because you're either worried about your child stuttering or your child has started stuttering and you want to make a difference and you want to help. Well, this workshop is going to give you the basic fundamentals you need to make a difference. Let's start with what is stuttering and what is considered normal. I think a lot of times when we hear the word stutter or disfluency, the first thing that comes to our minds is that there's something wrong. But the reality is, between the ages of 18 months and 5 years, it's absolutely normal for your child to stutter. What does that word mean, stutter? Or what does disfluency mean? Well, it just means that your child is repeating a sound or a syllable or making a sound much longer, which is also called prolongation. So what does child repeats a sound or syllable mean? Here's an example. I want to go. Apple. If you've noticed, the child is repeating the first sound over and over and over again. Or he can also repeat the first part of a word, banana. In that case, the child is repeating the first syllable of the word. That's repetition. Then we come to prolongation. So he takes the sound and makes it much longer. So, I want to go out. Both are considered a stutter, but this is normal and very typical for children between the ages of 18 months and 5 years. It comes and goes. It's not always apparent. There'll be a pattern. So it'll be there on some days and not other days. But something to keep in mind is that it is considered normal for this to happen between these ages of 18 months and 5 years. And if you come to think about it, I'm sure we've all stuttered at certain parts of our lives. Let's think about it. Going to a new job, starting something new, meeting new people. These are all situations where we would sometimes stutter. Our stutter as adults is slightly different. We use something called fillers. So we would usually use words like that to fill in the gaps. So that is also considered a stutter. Now let's go back to children. So as we said, between the ages of 18 months and 5 years, it is normal for your child to stutter. Let's move on. So the biggest question, or the question I get asked the most, is why? Why does my child stutter? Why is this happening to my child? There's many reasons, but there is not one reason that will cause a disfluency in a child. We can never say that this reason has led to my child stuttering. It could be a combination of things. It could be one thing. We don't really know. But something to keep in mind is that it's not just one aspect or one fact. So going through a vocabulary sprout and learning new things and using new languages is sometimes a reason why a child will stutter. So if your child is used to speaking a certain language at home and he joins a school and they're speaking a different language there, a stutter might appear. If your child is at a certain age where his vocabulary is increasing, either because he's growing or because he's in an environment where he's gaining more vocabulary, a stutter might become apparent there. Most of these issues happen before the age of 5. So all these episodes of mild stuttering usually happen before the age of 5, and as we said, that's normal. Other things to think about is girls versus boys, so genetics does play a small factor here, and environmental triggers. The amount of times a child between the ages of 18 months and 5 years would get a mild stutter just because of something that's changed in an environment. moving houses, changes in the family, starting a new school. So any environmental factor, something that happens in that child's environment, can lead to that happening. Okay, now we know why, and we know it's normal, but let's dive deep into what is considered normal. So what really is considered normal? A normal stutter that you should not really worry about is something that starts before the age of 5. It's a stutter that comes and goes, so it's not all the time. And it's a stutter where the child will repeat words or sounds or use fillers or pauses. So he'd pause before he talks. These are all considered normal characteristics of a stutter. So nothing to worry about there. But there are things that you do need to worry about. So let's talk about the red flags. These are things or risk factors that you need to kind of keep an eye on. And if any of these happen with your child or occur with your child, you will need to see a professional. So what type of professional will you need to see in this case? A speech and language therapist. Okay, so what are the red flags that we should look out for? If your child's stutter continues past the age of 5, you need to see a speech and language therapist. If your child starts to avoid talking and is very reluctant to talk and is aware of his stutter, then you'll also need to see a speech and language therapist. If your child's language skills, so overall development of his language skills, are either delayed or not following a normal pattern of development, then you'll need to see a speech and language therapist. If the stutter is accompanied by speech sound errors. So let's stop here for a second and talk about speech sound errors. What is considered a speech sound error? Well, it is any substitution of a sound. Here's an example. Instead of saying the word car, your child will say the word tar. So he's substituting the sound k with the sound t. So if your child is doing any speech sound errors or any substitutions, then you will also need to see a speech and language therapist, especially if that is accompanied with a stutter. That is a red flag. If your child's facial expressions change while he's stuttering, so this is called a facial grimace or twitching. So they will twitch parts of their eyes, nose, lips, mouth, something will twitch while he's stuttering, then that is a big red flag. And when that happens, you need to see someone. And if he starts repeating the words and phrases more often. So let's say your child starts with a simple stutter, repeats the word a few times, and then moves on fluently. If you see that with time, that is increasing and the number of repetitions are increasing, then that is a sign that your child's fluency is developing and he will require intervention. So let's recap a little bit. We said it's normal for a child to stutter between the ages of 18 months and 5 years. Yeah? So there's nothing to worry about that. But if your child continues to stutter past the age of 5, or if he's reluctant and doesn't want to talk, there's any facial expressions accompanying his stutter, or speech sound substitutions, then all of these are signs and red flags that you need help and support, and that is the time when you need to go and speak to a speech and language therapist. Okay, how can you help? So I'm going to briefly go through the different techniques we can use to help. So the first technique is owling. So your child is stuttering and you want to support him. You want to help him become more fluent. The first thing you can do is owl. And that is observe, wait, and listen. The worst thing you can do is rush your child while he's talking. So when your child is communicating with you and is approaching you and talking to you, remember to owl. Observe, wait, listen. 3 things. Observe, wait, and listen. So observe the child, look him in the eye, wait for him to finish talking. don't rush him, and listen to what he's saying. This will help automatically comfort your child, calm him down, and will help with his fluency. Do not ask your child to repeat a phrase or a sentence. This is going to just increase his awareness of stutter and transform a normal disfluency to a red flag where he's very aware of his stutter, which then will make the situation get out of control. So never ask your child to repeat a phrase. Another thing you can do, which is tricky, I'm a mother of 4 and I totally understand this is hard. Slow down. So not just the way you're talking or the pace that you're talking at, but just slow down your daily routine, what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Slow things down. That will help your child slow down and will help reduce his stutter and help him become much more fluent, because there's no rush, and that the sense of having to rush will just make the stutter much more apparent. So slow down, not just the pace that you're talking, but your day-to-day routine. And then the last one is to stay connected with your child. Look him in the eye and maintain eye contact. Thank you. I'm now going to move on to each of these and we're going to explain them a bit further.